Good. So you've been thinking about, this topic of what sustains me.
What is spirituality? Well, the first thing is, of course, the problem with the definition, but I think that, so I started to think about when I was first aware of something. I know the question is what, but kind of like something besides this apparent reality or something different that was accessible. And I have a couple of memories. One is crossing the street when I was in elementary school, from the school on the way home. And we walked home. As I was walking home, I suddenly had an image of myself from above, like there's a little girl walking down the street.
Mm-hmm.
And I, sort of out of body, I was aware that it was unusual.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any words for these things. And then it's very hard for me to separate that from other feelings of being different because I'm a triplet. And
Wow.
I'm the fraternal one. And from my earliest memories in the womb, I was aware that there were two others who were in sync with each other, and I was in a different rhythm. And they shared an egg, a placebo, and we think they're identical. So, and we were dressed alike till we were 12. But I was always aware of being different, or kind of in a different. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm
Yeah,
fascinated by
different kind
that's,
of rhythm
yeah,
from others.
yeah.
And even now when we get together, one says, I have to go to the bathroom, the other one says, oh, I have to go to the bathroom, and I don't. They're always kind of getting up, going to sleep in a very similar rhythm, and my rhythms are very different.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling kind of orbiting slightly outside other people's orbits, I think.
Hmm.
And I guess also these are early memories. We had a typical noisy Jewish family, lots of hubbub and intrusions and all that, interruptions. I always had the feeling of, number one, craving silence
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and being very bored with the kind of chit-chat that other people seem to be immensely interested in, like the next good place to eat or who paid more or less for things. And I always had a feeling that that was not where I was really living.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But again, I never thought about words for any of these things, and kind of being different was something I just kind of took for granted. Luckily, I functioned in this world well enough, but there was always a feeling of being an outsider, being different, or somehow being called to a different rhythm, a different something.
Yeah.
And I think that the thing about being bored by the chit-chat was not so much a feeling that there was another reality or another set of meaningful connections, behind this apparent chaos and everydayness of the world. But somehow longing for a greater harmony, I guess, or a greater silence or something, since I can remember.
Mm-hmm. 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 So just to give you to play back some of what I heard is there is something about a certain distance, like that experience, that out of body experience of looking at yourself from the outside. There's that very, very, very early experience of otherness, where, in a normal way, in a typical way, people consider being siblings one of the closest way of being close. And, experience is given how close the twins were, that being the triplet that's fraternal, felt very different. So highly sensitized to being different. And that sense of marching to in a different rhythm. And so the ordinary conversation bullshit is something that you're also aware of as not your rhythm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a yearning, I guess,
Yeah.
for something else.
Yeah.
Sometimes many years later, working with archetypes and stuff, I used to actually kind of fantasize. My mother would read to us before sleep, and mostly she was very literate and loved literature, and we grew up with a lot of reading and books. But I used to dream of what I would think of as the perfect mother coming to me as I'm falling asleep, and she'd be sort of dressed all in white and very quiet and graceful and listen and just be able to sit silently with me. And my mother was quite the opposite, very earthly, very talkative, very much in this world.
So that you were talking about the yearning for something else, and in that sense, the dream of that mother who is so different from your very earthy mother.
Yeah, and I think it's important in two ways. One is to have had a mother like that, and the other is just to connect to somebody else in a space of kind of silence and sensing that I didn't even know how to ask for, since everybody was so talkative around me mostly.
Yeah. So as you talk about it from this perspective, it feels very right in terms of the question of what sustains me. And that sense of, there's that yearning that's been with you is really a big part.
I guess that goes with loneliness too. That's another big, and I once had a conversation with Jack Kornfield about this, interesting enough, because he's a twin, and he's not close to his twin. So there's a feeling of like there should be an other, but there isn't. Or the others are in their rhythm, and you're waiting for your others or something. To be met in that place.
Yeah. So maybe is it, and is there that am I hearing right that the aloneness is even stronger, that feeling, given that you normally expect to have more of a connection?
I think that's part of what drew me to. There are many pieces of that drew me to pieces of spiritual practices later on, but one of them was I found it immensely comforting to remember that I was connected to all living things around me. I guess not people, but even if I was not feeling connected to people, I was still connected to sentient beings, to a world.
So you have a place in the world. You're connected. You're, that's the very different from that sense of otherness and disconnected. So I have that sense of almost, if you saw a movie and you'd have a person in the middle of a cocktail party and have that inane chit chat that's going on so much that blah 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 blah, and that and feels very separating. And in contrast, that sense of deep connection with everything in the world.
And again, it comes back to Judaism and Nada. I think my experience of Judaism was so much focused on human beings and connections and community with human beings. And there wasn't much teaching about connection to just life around us. It's that whole thing about stewardship over the earth or dominion over versus, interconnected with. And until I started hearing language that talked about interconnected with everything else, that was music to my ears.
So it was a revelation about Judaism that you didn't know when you were growing up.
Well, what I was exposed to in Judaism didn't speak to my feelings about spirituality, even if I couldn't define it. It was about doing good in the world or raising money for good causes or, something like that. But it didn't really talk about the different realities beyond, except of course God, which I couldn't relate to either very much. So I didn't realize it as spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple of clues, I think, when we were 9 and 10 years old. We spent the summer at a Quaker camp. And they had, every Sunday was called Meditation in the Dell. It was a little wooded clearing where we all sat in silence for 45 minutes and we spoke if we were moved. But I mean, at 8 or 9, I was very comfortable with that silence. I remember being very engrossed in sitting on the ground and looking at the bugs and the ants and the leaves, and I was perfectly entertained. Didn't have any problem for 45 minutes. I know that freaks out a lot of people, but I always loved it.
Yeah. So during this moment of enforced loneliness, in a way, paradoxically, you don't feel lonely and you find a sense of deep connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because everybody was silent together.
Yeah. So, would it be fair to summarize the answer to the question? Like, well, what sustains you? What sustains me is a sense of deep connection to the universe, to life, to things around me, to everything that exists.
Mm-hmm.
And the practices that help bring about that connection.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, there is something about these practices being related to Judaism that's important to you.
Being related to what?
To Judaism.
Yes. Kind of in the back door, though. It was more that I spent so many years studying Buddhism that I then asked myself, it must be here in Judaism, and there must be other places to look that I wasn't exposed to. So I started to search. But I think I experienced it elsewhere first. The other place I experienced it that was in Judaism that has continued throughout my life was at age 14 going to Israel, spending the summer there. And the dancing immediately transported me somewhere else.
So there's something for you about dancing. And I remember when you had emailed from that conference about movement and how, I was really so happy that you were able to introduce movement there. So something about movement that that's very deeply sustaining to you.
Mm-hmm. I guess in two ways. One is, on an individual level, some movement therapists talk about, and supposedly Mary Whitehouse, who worked with Carl Jung, said this first in this way, but I don't know who said it first. But first, you're moving the movements, like when you're learning steps, and it's all very self-conscious and kind of driven by ego or will or memory. And then the movement takes over and the movement moves you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a way in which you're being moved as you move, where you really lose yourself in the movement and your sense of separateness and self-consciousness and all of that. And you are the dance. That's corny too, but you really are. And that I felt at 14 because, especially in the Israeli folk dances, you do them over and over, hour after hour, till things really start shifting. You're no longer worried about steps. You're just swept up in this thing. And then the other part of it in folk dance is you're moving in lines and circles. And by the way, I just read an interesting bit of research. They're now doing brain research, and obviously your brain changes, and people's brains synchronize when they're dancing together, folk dance. Because you have to be very aware. If you're doing your own dancing, you're not aware of your neighbors. You have to stay in your place in line. If you go too fast, too slow, you break the continuity of the line. If you're dancing too far forward, too far back, you break the smoothness of the line. So you're always having to sense and adjust yourself to. And especially when the dances get very fast and jumping and moving, you really have to stay within your formation. So the combination of and you can't think your way through it, because as soon as you do that, you've lost the flow. So you really have to sense immediately where you are and how your movement is in harmony with people around you. And it's a very wonderful feeling, really, when there's a whole room of fast moving circles and lines and you just kind of with the thing.
So that kind of dancing literally is an experiential way to feel very much part of a group and of sensing the group's presence, the group's movement, of being in it
Mm-hmm.
at a very deep level. You can't fake it.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. And again, that came before I would have thought it pretentious to call it spiritual. You know, I didn't. I thought spiritual was something very pious or holy or white robes or other things. It certainly wasn't sweating and lines of people all moving together. But,
Yeah.
looking back, I can see that it was very much so energetically.
No, but that's why we're calling this project, What Sustains Me, to avoid that sense of, spiritual has to be white robes and angelic
Mm-hmm.
voices, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So even without putting the concept, or even at an age where you might have been, not comfortable putting that concept together with it, you sensed it as something that had that kind of deep sustenance, with something that felt very, very powerful, very moving for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And again, it's that loneliness thing. I mean, and when I was single and when I was in college, I used to go folk dancing on the Friday nights. They have great folk dancing at some of the major universities, and you're really with groups of people. You may have very little in common, but you recognize each other, and in the line dances, there's a giving and taking, a sharing, that you really have participated with people in something. And that's why I love lava notation, all that, because you can sense there's circles and lines and diagonals and patterns. And that, to me, is kind of the architecture that hooks you into something greater than yourself. It's not just random bumping into molecules, but there's really orienting in space and connecting energetically, connecting spatially, connecting.
Yeah. So
not just a little
there's an
bubble
order.
floating by yourself.
Yeah. So there's an order to it. It's not just random movement. It's not. Yeah. So in that sense, that's like some of the phrases that can go with it, or with talking about spirituality, would be to have a sense of perceiving the order of all things. But this is not an abstract thing. You are experiencing that order while moving.
You are, and it's a little like if you start to, it's so not abstract that as soon as you think conceptually about it, you're out of the line. You've lost the connection if you start thinking. So it absolutely has to be sensed and felt.
Yeah. So in a way, part of it is a practice about connection, but part of it is also a practice about disconnecting that heavy reliance on the logical thinking brain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So obviously you are somebody who's very good at abstract thinking, and but there is a yearning for also disconnecting that part in order to connect more to that other way of being. And that other way of being is one in which you feel more connected to others, or not others as individual, but others as a part of the larger group.
That's right. So it's much more emotional in a way. It's more like the sense of belonging.
Yeah. So the sense of belonging, which is very much at the other end of the spectrum from that sense of otherness, isolation, alone, different, and there is that sense of actually sensing how the group as a whole moves and feeling that you're very much moving in sync. And so that's the opposite of not moving like your siblings.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it also led me to my work. I remember being at Bronx State Hospital in 1971, the back wards of psychiatric hospital where they still call people schizophrenic, and they'd been, hospitalized for 30 years, really out of touch with other people, with themselves, and watching how they would join a simple circle dance. And these are people who were so alone and so in their own little bubble. Just the look on their face, when they were part of something, part of a whole, and how anybody could join in moved me enormously.
So that shift from alone to actually, crossing that boundary and feeling connected. And movement and connection go hand in hand.
Yes.
So that's something that feels very, very powerful, very beautiful there, about that very stark contrast between, in a way, alone and to some extent frozen or tight, or and then the expansion that comes from movement and connection.
Yes.
And sensing, it's like, because it's not, movement alone. That kind of movement is only possible to the extent that the sensing brain, so sensing mind, that connection is there. So it's about sensing connection. Is that something that you have, that you automatically find, or is it something that you have sometimes to make an effort to find?
I think I've always been searching for it, but I think that the places I found it came rather easily, like a folk dancing experience. I found it a little bit. I used to be in the orchestra and played the cello. Making music with other people brings it, although I think for me it's more in the body than it is in the ears or the listening.
But, these days, for instance, is it something where you are naturally in that space, or is it something that you sometimes have to make an effort to be?
Am I naturally in that space of connecting with others?
Connecting, music, movement, coming
back? Yes, I think I am naturally.
Yeah.
I think I am naturally, and I think there still is a feeling often for me of living in an alien world, where most of the everydayness of life is not connected in there.
So there's something of both, in some form. Everyday life is has a bit of that connotation of otherness, of alienation, but there is the possibility of actually getting into that other dimension of connectedness. Yeah.
I'm always aware of. It's not described by the world friendly. This is what sustains me. I have a running. I guess you can quote this. I have a running conversation, for example, with my husband, who is very happy doing his banking online, doing a lot of things online. And I try to explain to him why there's a little local Wells Fargo bank right down the corner. Every week, it's part of my routine, is I go there during Wednesday lunch and I deposit the checks from the week, and I say hello to the tellers, and I say, oh, so-and-so is new, or they always greet me when I come in. And we have little jokes. I often come in eating frozen yogurt, and we, have a little, or they're watching the cooking channel, and there's some little exchanges, and it's also a sense of belonging. And somehow wherever I go, I actually need to make a connection. Machines don't do that for me. It's not just about doing the transaction of depositing checks. That's not really it. A visit to the bank is a sense of place. It's this street. It's those people. It's the regularity of doing it every week. So that's what makes life meaningful to me, is many ways of possibly bringing connection into all the tiny things of everyday life.
Yeah. So there's connection, but it's connection not just in a simple way of connection by, say, saying hello to somebody, but you're introducing, as you're describing it, other elements, other parts of what connection means. And certainly part of it is, for instance, the ritual of something that happens every week. So there is a sense of, it's not just saying hello to one person, once, but it's, this is that moment. And so it has you're enjoying it as kind of that ritual level.
Yes. There's repetition, there's patterns. That's what makes it bigger than a one-time sort of self-conscious thing.
Yeah.
It starts taking on a life of its own.
And so in a way, for you, online banking would be something that would be practical, but this, in contrast, is enriched with many other dimensions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, in that very simple example, there's a sense of you saying what enriches me, what sustains me, is that even relatively simple moments can be done, can be lived, can be experienced in such a way that they're richer and more meaningful.
I was gonna, again, this is kind of pretentious word to use, but I was gonna say transformed.
Yeah.
When we throw around terms like creating meaning or something like that, it's an active approach to all these moments. It's not just kind of crossing them off a list or getting them done.
Yeah.
It's not just outcome. It's not just practicality. It's as you said, creating something richer and through the repetition of creating I think of it sort of as creating a holding network. So in my life, I'm not held just by one person or one community, but there's a sort of a fabric around me that I'm touching into all the time. That's part of what holds me.
Yeah. And I think that's very nice. You emphasize the part that's active. So it's not that, quote, the environment is holding type of thing in a passive way. You're receiving it, but there's like a phenomenological interaction. You do something. It's a choice, and it's a way of behaving in the world, and the choices you make and the way you experience it that actually makes this actually holding and meaningful and richer.
So I was thinking when you first, about a moment ago, I was thinking I thou, and it is really trying to make every moment a thou moment, but it's more than that in that it's also a rhythm and repetition. It's not just going to the bank once and having an, oh wow, I talked to a teller, that was a thou moment, but it's building relationships, it's building connecting links on a chain, the bank, the yogurt place, the repetition, the coming back in, that all of it has a rhythm.
Yeah.
And creates a holding environment, I think.
Yeah. So
again, I think of thou as like a one at a time conscious experience, maybe mystical, but this is actually creating a sustainable holding network around oneself.
Yeah, yeah. And again, you're using the creating, the holding network around yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
so that's a very active thing. Is
Mm-hmm.
that's a choice. I'd rather, there's a very clear consciousness of I'd rather live that way than not.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in
Mm-hmm.
order to live that way, here are some of the things I do. And then, as I
Mm-hmm.
do them, as I experience them weekly every time I go to the bank, then in a way it's not just that relationship with the bank people, but it's the experience of that holding environment that you have been creating in so many different ways, not just in the bank.
Mm-hmm. It's, I mean, that's the focal point of that. I was just going over in my mind what a walk to the bank is. It's passing, just now I walked from the bank here to the office and I noticed that there's oh gosh, what did I notice? A new store, I think. They're painting, there's a new restaurant that moved in and they're painting a pole green, light pole, which none of the others on the street. So anyway, you notice changes in the environment. You have your baseline and then you notice each week what's changed. And it's
Mm-hmm.
always the kind of checking in with the whole community, not just, the bank is the focus of the week. It
Mm-hmm.
gives me a little repeated walk. It's, sometimes they say in Zen, if you're doing a walking meditation, it's the same path, but one time there's a leaf that's falling, the other time there's a
Mm-hmm.
little. So because it's routinized and stable, you also notice against that backdrop, you notice changes too.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So
So,
that's that
so
rhythm of same and change, same and stability and change, stability and change.
But so it's not just in a way stability and change in an abstract way, because as you describe it this way, it really has the flavor of a relationship. So you have a relationship with the environment, and you're there and noticing, and in a way the environment. Oh yeah, this boutique is doing this a little bit differently, or this is
Mm-hmm.
there. So it has that flavor of interaction as I'm listening to you.
That's right, yeah. And I was away a week. I just got back into the office. So you notice it besides the pile of mail to go through, there's little notes, don't forget to put the bill in the checks in the mail, don't, when I come back, or more construction. Now they're working on this store, they're doing this. So you check in after a week again because there's a baseline. You're noticing changes, not so consciously,
Mm-hmm,
yeah,
mm-hmm,
I'll look around and notice changes, but your mind is registering all these things.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So that's the exact opposite of walking mindlessly through life, or being in a rush and just being goal oriented and not noticing. So this is a moment of actually
Mm-hmm.
being aware of here and now.
In a sense, again, these are so corny because they've been used a lot, but the world becomes alive
Mm-hmm.
around you.
Mm-hmm.
It speaks to you, it's interesting, it calls your attention, that, you push, it pushes back, there's a reciprocity.
Yeah, yeah. So very much that sense of connection.
Mm-hmm. So again, it's not spiritual in the sense that I used to think it had to be transcending
Mm-hmm.
this world. It's more for me about the body in this world, aliveness and this, making this time and place special.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. So in a way, that's what comes from, my own experience, having thought of, approached the spiritual from the theory of what the spiritual is, or the ideas, or, um, and this is a different experience that you may not have put in that category. And then, it kind of starts merging and say, oh, actually that does correspond to, certainly to say what a contemplative tradition has to say about life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hmm. So that feels very nice. So, maybe let's just take a moment to see how we kind of bookmark this, for to come back to it another time, and just in part of this process of exploring, the possible writing of What Sustains Me chapter for you.
Mm-hmm.
So just what do you want to bookmark from this?
What parts of this do I want to bookmark?
Toward the process of writing the chapter, what could we, what could we bookmark?
I keep thinking about the aliveness, inner aliveness, but also aliveness with the world around. It's making this. It's. Let's see.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a split between a meaningless reality and a magical reality behind this reality, but I think it's best when it comes together and you can create magic in this reality and find and create repeated connections and interactions with small moments as well as big ones in this reality.
Yeah.
So this, and the key words, I guess, are connectedness, also sense of belonging, not alone.
Yeah. So as you're talking about this, the image that comes to mind, movie, so kind of a movie cliche type situation, but you know how a movie can shift from black and white to color. And so that sense of, experiencing the world in black and white, and it's drab and it doesn't, it's dead, but that, there's a way of interacting with the world or of being, and, that suddenly it comes in color, it's vibrant, it's alive, and the world is alive, and you are more alive in contact with the world, and so there's that connection and that, essentially life.
Yeah, definitely. And I frankly always found it confusing to do. I had, and then I'd better get off because I've got somebody coming in a moment. I had two Myers-Briggs. I took two Myers-Briggs, and I was 49-51 on introvert extrovert, and then 51-49. And I think I'm at both extremes, but I also think there's a time when it comes together, and your energy is refueled by sending it out into the world and having it come back, but it also is refueled by sending it within, and then it comes back. And I see more, I see the balance is almost like a figure of 8, out, back, in, back, out, back, in, back. So I never quite understood it as one or the other.
Yeah. No, that's a beautiful image, that figure 8 of, yeah.
This is part of the Active Pause podcast at activepause.com.